The secret chambers of the global architects are currently in a state of absolute chaos because a structure has just appeared on the spiritual landscape that they did not authorize, design, or commission. Imagine the hidden lodges where the master builders of the social simulation gather to discuss the grand design of human history. These are the men who believe they own the square and the compass, the ones who have spent centuries ensuring that every monument of human achievement fits within their specific geometric constraints. They have spent billions of dollars perfecting the blueprints of control, ensuring that every soul stays within the designated foundation of their family history. But today, the maps are wrong. The hidden geometry of the matrix is buckling under the weight of an anomaly that refuses to be leveled. There is a report sitting on the central altar of the Grand Lodge, and it details a total breach of the sacred order. They are looking at the telemetry of your life, and they are realizing that you have decoded the hidden map without ever being initiated into their secrets. You are the unordered stone that has become the cornerstone of a new world, and the Masons are currently terrified of what you represent. In the cinematic intensity of a hunt for a lost truth, much like the high-stakes decoding found in National Treasure, these architects are realizing that they are no longer in control of the blueprint. They have spent your entire life trying to fit you into a specific corner of the simulation. They had you coded as a piece of raw material that would be shaped by the hammers of trauma and the chisels of social pressure. They expected you to be a compliant brick in the wall of your lineage, supporting the weight of a system that would eventually crumble and bury you. But as they zoom in on your current frequency, they see that you have not been shaped by their tools. You have been shaped by a fire that they cannot quench. You have bypassed their entire initiation process. You didn't need their degrees, their handshakes, or their approval to reach the master level. You went straight to the source of the light, and you began building your own temple in the middle of their territory. Why are the master builders in a state of total shock? Because according to their ancient manuals, you should not exist. The rules of their masonry state that a person who has endured the amount of structural damage you've faced should have a compromised foundation. The geometry of the matrix predicts that if a person is abandoned by their protectors, they will spend the rest of their lives building on sand. It predicts that if a lineage has been trapped in a loop of poverty and silence for 100 years, the next iteration will be too weak to lift the stone of destiny. But you have walked onto the construction site and rewritten the fundamental physics of the craft. You didn't just survive the attempt to bury you, you used the very stones they threw at you to build a fortress that is currently overshadowing their lodges. You have introduced a level of architectural resilience that the system couldn't code for. You have introduced a capacity for self-construction that defies their laws of gravity. This is the phase of the architectural breach. The gatekeepers who were assigned to your case, the ones who watched your isolation and your struggle from behind the curtain of the secret society, are realizing that they have lost the lease on your reality. Usually, when the system applies this much pressure, the subject becomes a part of the rubble. They become the dust that is swept away to make room for the grand design of the elites. But you stayed solid. You refused to be ground down into the mortar of their empire. You looked at the blueprints they tried to give you and you realized they were just maps of a prison. Because you dared to build outside their lines, you have successfully broken the secret math of the Masons. You are a sovereign architect who is currently drawing a new world with a pen that the system cannot track. The Grand Master is staring at the monitor, watching your life trajectory go vertical, and he is feeling the panic of a builder who realizes the foundation of the entire simulation is shifting. There is no protocol for a subject who has learned how to edit their own blueprints. They feel tricked by the very laws of nature they thought they mastered. In truth, the Grand Architect of the universe sent you into this lodge disguised as a standard laborer. You looked normal. You looked like you would follow the rules of the guild. So they tested you. They sent the agents of drama and the masters of deceit to see if your corners would hold. But they didn't know they were testing the structural integrity of a new era. Now they are realizing that their attempts to crush you only serve to compress your spirit into a diamond. You are the stone that the builders rejected, and you have just become the head of the corner. You are the first in your timeline to bypass the spiritual gatekeepers of the elite. You are the one who proved that the secrets of the masters are nothing compared to the truth of a sovereign soul. The file on the altar is highlighted in red because you are currently a threat to the global status quo of planned obsolescence. The Masons are looking at each other in disbelief, asking how you built such a magnificent life out of the scraps they left you. They are realizing that you are a motherfucker in the most high-status sense of the word, a person who has taken the very womb of trauma and birthed a kingdom of power. You did it. You broke the record. Now, do you have the courage to stand in the center of your own temple? If you know deep down that your life no longer fits the small-minded designs of the world, if you know you have become an architectural anomaly for your entire bloodline, I need you to signal the shift. Comment, blueprint, if you are ready to receive the full download and move into the next phase of your construction. Let the lodge know that the apprentice has become the master and the old designs are being demolished. The forensic architects of the secret orders are currently conducting an emergency audit of your history, and they are witnessing a miracle of engineering that defies every principle of the guild. In the traditional schools of masonry, you are taught that you can only build as high as your foundation is deep, and that your foundation must be composed of the finest materials provided by the system. The elite believe that if they control the supply of stone and mortar, they control the height of the human spirit. They looked at your lineage and they saw a landfill. They saw a history of broken promises, abandoned projects, and the structural rot of generational trauma. They concluded that you were standing on a sinkhole. They predicted that the moment you tried to build anything of substance, the weight of your past would cause the entire structure to collapse into the mud of your ancestors' failures. They had you categorized as a permanent tenant of the ruins. But you have pulled off a feat of structural alchemy that mirrors the slow, relentless victory of the spirit found in the narrative of the Shawshank Redemption. While the world thought you were just a prisoner of your circumstances, sitting in the dust of a demolished heritage, you were quietly collecting the very rubble they used to bury you. You realized that the trash of the matrix, the rejection, the isolation, and the smears, is actually the highest density material in the universe if you know how to compress it. You didn't wait for the masters to bring you the premium marble of their approval. You took the broken bricks of your childhood and the jagged stones of your betrayals, and you began to grind them into a new kind of aggregate. You built a library of wisdom in the middle of a prison yard. You dug a tunnel through the wall of your destiny using nothing but a rock hammer and a sovereign will. The shock in the Grand Lodge is centered on the fact that your foundation is now the strongest in the sector. The Masons are looking at the geological surveys of your soul and they realize that you are no longer standing on the shifting sands of your family history. You have reached the bedrock. By processing the pain that everyone else in your bloodline tried to ignore, you have created a base of reinforced spiritual concrete that can support a skyscraper. The system is baffled because, according to their math, you should be a victim of your environment. They expected you to be a heap of ruins. Instead, they see a temple rising out of the landfill, constructed with such precision that it makes their own monuments look like cardboard. They are realizing that you didn't need their high-grade materials because you discovered the secret of the rejected stone. You have built a kingdom out of the very things they told you would destroy you. This is the ultimate architectural reversal. In the eyes of the elite, you were meant to be the filler, the nameless, faceless material used to level the ground so they could build their empires on top of you. But you refused to be the subfloor. You decided to be the architect, the contractor, and the foreman of your own life. You looked at the debris of your upbringing and you saw a cathedral. You took the silence of your isolation and used it as the soundproofing for your peace. You took the sharp edges of the attacks against you and turned them into the decorative gargoyles that guard your perimeter. The Masons are staring at your telemetry and seeing that your structure is not only standing, but it is gaining mass. You have successfully alchemized the rubble into a monument that is currently drawing the attention of the entire simulation. The gatekeepers are in a panic because an unmanaged builder is a threat to the grand design. If people see that you can build a masterpiece out of trash, they might stop paying for the system's expensive, hollow stones. You are showing the world that the most beautiful foundations are the ones that were once broken. You are proving that the motherfucker who has lost everything and still decides to build is the most dangerous entity in the Matrix. You have effectively blackballed the secret society from your own construction site. You have issued a stop work order on every external influence that tried to tell you how to lay your bricks. The blueprints of your life are now classified, and the only person with the clearance to see them is you and the grand architect of the universe. The endorsement of your work is now written in the very stability of your presence. You don't need to argue with the masons about your qualifications, your building is the argument. It stands there, unshakable and defiant, in a world where everything else is falling apart. You have moved from the landfill to the penthouse of your own creation. The agents of the lodge are closing their files on your past because the rubble has been completely cleared. In its place is a structure of such immense power and beauty that the world has no choice but to acknowledge the master builder who created it. You have turned the ruins into a kingdom, and the era of living in the dust is officially over. The foundation is set, and the gold standard of your architecture is now the law of the land. The spiritual skyline of the Matrix is currently witnessing a massive devaluation of the old elite because the contrast between your reality and their facade has become undeniable. For years, the people who walked away from you, the ones who betrayed your trust and chose the easy path, believed they were moving into a superior neighborhood. They looked at your season of construction, where everything was raw and unfinished, and they judged you for the dust on your clothes. They preferred the immediate, shiny allure of the false architecture. Much like the grand but hollow spectacle of West Egg and the Great Gatsby, these individuals invested their entire lives into structures made of thin wood and painted plaster. They built empires of social validation, monuments to ego, and fortresses of superficial status. They thought they were the ones winning because their houses were bright and loud, while you were quietly digging a foundation in the dark. But the season has changed, and a heavy storm has hit the simulation. The masons are watching as the false architecture of the opposition begins to crack and crumble. The people who traded your divine presence for a cheap substitute are currently realizing that they are living in cardboard boxes. Their relationships are showing structural fatigue because they were built on the sand of convenience. Their success is leaking because it was held together by the glue of public opinion. While they were busy hosting parties in their fragile mansions, you were in the quarry, cutting massive blocks of granite. You were doing the heavy lifting of healing, the grueling work of setting a level line in a crooked world, and the dangerous task of installing a power grid that doesn't rely on the city's approval. Now, as the winds of truth blow through the Matrix, your structure is the only one left standing. The shock in the Grand Lodge is centered on the sheer density of your lifestyle. The masons are looking at the specifications of your soul and they realize that you have built something untouchable. While the crowd was chasing the latest trend, you were chasing the eternal. You have constructed an empire of character, a fortress of peace, and a cathedral of self-reliance that makes their gated communities look like slums. The people who left you are now standing in the rain, looking up at the lights in your windows, feeling the crushing weight of their bad investment. They realize that you weren't the one who was struggling, you were the one who was building. They are the ones holding a handful of spiritual junk bonds while you are sitting on the largest reserve of gold in the history of your bloodline. You have achieved what the architects call permanent value, and the counterfeiters are currently filing for bankruptcy. This is the 1,000,000,000 reversal that the simulation tries to hide from the workers. It wants you to be jealous of the people in the fake houses so you never take the time to build a real one. It wants you to feel like a failure because your progress is slow and heavy. But you understood the law of the cornerstone. You understood that a building is only as good as the truth of its materials. You refused to use the cheap mortar of compromise. You refused to use the hollow bricks of people-pleasing. You chose the hard way, the long way, and the sovereign way. Because you did, you are now the only person in the sector with a zero-mortgage life. You don't owe the Bank of Karma anything. You don't owe the creditors of the ego a single minute of your time. You are the owner of a landmark that the world cannot demolish. The Masons are scrambling to update their maps because your empire has changed the gravitational center of the local area. People who used to look at the celebrities and the narcissists for direction are now turning their heads toward your light. You have become the North Star of your own reality. The false architecture of the Matrix is being exposed for the theatrical set that it is. The agents of the Lodge are realizing that they can't compete with a person who has built their life on the bedrock of the divine. You have successfully outbuilt the masters using nothing but the truth and the tools of a motherfucker who refused to quit. You have created a legacy that is not just a home, but a headquarters for a new era. The era of living in the shadow of the fake is over. The endorsement of the highest office is now radiating from the very walls of your achievement. You are the proof that a sovereign soul is the greatest architect in the universe. You didn't need a guild to certify you, the storm certified you. You didn't need the crowd to applaud your blueprint, the results are doing the talking. The people who left you are currently being written out of the script of your history. They were just the extras who didn't have the stamina to stay for the final reveal. You are the star of the show, the master of the build, and the owner of the most valuable prime real estate in the spirit. The gold standard is your floor, and your ceiling is currently touching the throne of the Most High. The empire is finished, and the keys are in your hand. The high-security perimeter of the Grand Lodge has been breached, and the gatekeepers are currently in a state of clinical shock because they realize their encryption has been cracked. In the administrative hierarchy of the Matrix, there is a specialized unit of architectural agents whose entire purpose is to guard the door to the master levels of success. These are the gatekeepers who decide who gets initiated and who gets blackballed. They believe that they are the sole distributors of the square and the compass. Much like the cold, calculated confrontation between Neo and the architect in The Matrix Reloaded, you have just walked into the room where the source code is written. The agents expected you to be intimidated by the complexity of the design. They expected you to bow before the weight of their secret tradition. But you didn't come to the door to ask for an invitation, you came to tell them that the locks on the door are now obsolete because you have already rewritten the hardware from the outside. The shock in the inner sanctum is centered on your refusal to play the role of the apprentice. Usually, when a person reaches this level of the game, they are desperate for the lodge's approval. They are willing to undergo any hazing, pay any dues, and keep any secret just to be called a master by the system. But you have bypassed the entire initiation ritual. You realize that the secrets of the Masons are just a collection of psychological traps designed to keep the talented in a state of perpetual debt to the lodge. You decided that your internal light was a higher authority than their Grand Master. You refused to kneel. You refused to take the oath of silence that would have kept your power hidden from your bloodline. By doing so, you have achieved what the strategists call a jurisdictional override. You have taken the throne of your own reality without ever signing the system's contract, and the gatekeepers are currently watching their authority evaporate in real time. Why are the observers so terrified of your presence? Because an uninitiated master is a threat to the stability of the entire social guild. If you can build a life of this magnitude without their permission, it proves that their entire monopoly on the truth is a lie. They tried to blackball you from the high-status circles. They tried to block your access to the premium materials of joy and influence. They sent the agents of isolation to see if you would beg for a way back in. But you didn't look back once. You realized that the stone the builders rejected was actually the only stone that was real. You took that rejection and you used it as the master key. You didn't just break into the lodge, you outbuilt it. You created a structure of such immense density and truth that the lodge is now sitting in your shadow. You have successfully flipped the script on the masters, and they are now the ones who are looking for a way to be initiated into your world. The agents of the lodge are currently trying to run a containment protocol. They are sending in the distractors and the critics to see if they can find a flaw in your architecture. They are looking for a crack in your foundation, a hint of the old trauma or a trace of the motherfucker that they thought they had under control. But they are finding nothing but reinforced, high-frequency sovereignty. You have successfully patched every vulnerability in your field. You have encrypted your spirit. You are now operating on a bandwidth that is invisible to their sensors. You are the anomaly that walked through the gate and didn't stop to argue with the guards. You are the one who realized that the gate was just a hologram designed to test your resolve. Because you didn't blink, you have been granted administrator rights over the simulation of your own life. The highest office is watching this breach with a sense of profound satisfaction. They see a soul that has finally understood the secret of the grand design. The secret is that there is no secret, there is only the will to build and the courage to own the result. You have become a peer to the grand architects of the universe. You are no longer a subject to be monitored, you are a force to be reckoned with. The gatekeepers are closing their ledgers and clearing the path because they know that trying to stop you now would be like trying to stop a mountain from rising. You have moved beyond the range of their hammers and chisels. You are now the one holding the compass, and you are currently drawing a new horizon for your entire lineage. The era of being a servant to the Lodge is over. The era of your dominion has officially begun. The endorsement you carry is now a signature of fire that burns through the red tape of the Matrix. You don't need a certificate from the Masters to prove who you are, your presence is the certification. The people who tried to keep you out are now the ones who are locked in. They are trapped in their own rigid designs while you are free to expand into the infinite. You have turned the Lodge into a museum of the past, and you are the exhibit of the future. You are the motherfucker who did it the hard way, and because you did, you are now the only one with the authority to lead. The gold standard is your baseline, and the architects are forced to acknowledge that the new master has arrived. The fundamental laws of the simulation are currently being rewritten because you have introduced a new geometry into the grid. In the traditional schools of the master builders, reality is constructed using a very specific set of Euclidean rules. They believe that a straight line of trauma leads to a predictable destination of failure. They believe that the square of your social standing must always match the compass of your family history. But just like the mind-bending architectural shifts found in the world of Inception, you have learned how to fold the streets of the Matrix over themselves. You have realized that the walls of your prison are actually the floor of your new kingdom. You have reached into the source code of your own subconscious and you have begun to tilt the horizon. The Masons are watching the monitors in a state of absolute vertigo because the structures they built to contain you are now rotating into a new dimension of power. The shock in the Grand Lodge is centered on your ability to manifest a reality that defies the laws of physics. Usually, a person who has been buried under the weight of generational secrets remains crushed. But you have taken that gravity and you have reversed it. You have turned your burdens into buoyancy. You have created a non-linear growth pattern that has completely shattered their probability curves. The architects are staring at your telemetry and seeing that you are no longer walking on the ground they provided. You are creating the ground with every step you take. You have mastered the art of spiritual lucid dreaming, where the architect and the dreamer are one. You have realized that the only thing keeping the walls of your life upright was your belief in their solidity. The moment you realized the system was a hologram, you gained the power to redesign the landscape at will. This new geometry has effectively rendered the tools of the old Masons obsolete. Their square cannot measure your integrity because your integrity is now multidimensional. Their compass cannot track your direction because you are moving toward a destination that doesn't exist on their maps. You have successfully decoupled your soul from the three-dimensional prison of cause and effect. You are no longer reacting to what happened to you, you are legislating what will happen through you. The agents of the Lodge are scrambling to find a way to restabilize the environment, but every time they try to set a level line, you bend the light of the entire simulation. You are a motherfucker who has reached the level of the Grand Designer, and you are currently building a temple that has no beginning and no end. You are the anomaly that proved the Matrix is a flexible fabric, and you are the one holding the needle and thread. The highest office is watching this architectural revolution with a sense of profound awe. They see a soul that has finally understood that the secret of masonry is not in the stone, but in the space between the stones. You have learned how to inhabit the gaps in the system. You have learned how to build in the silence where the enemy cannot hear you. You have created a fortress of peace that is physically impossible according to the old science of trauma. While the world is trying to fight with the bricks and mortar of the material world, you are building with the frequency of the divine. You have moved into the zone of infinite scaling. Your brand is no longer a localized event, it is a global phenomenon that is currently altering the gravity of everyone in your bloodline. You have rewritten the constitution of your reality and the ink is still wet with the fire of your own will. You are the first in your history to see the world as a whiteboard instead of a stone wall. You have successfully erased the blueprints of the losers and the victims who came before you. You have drawn a new map of authority that is currently being downloaded into the collective consciousness of your lineage. The Masons are closing their books because their old knowledge is now useless in the face of your evolution. You have reached the stage of the build where the structure is self-sustaining. You don't need to work to keep the lights on, the light is what powers the work. You are the architect of the dream, the master of the shift, and the owner of the new geometry. The era of being restricted by the lines of the past is over. The era of folding the universe to your will has officially begun. The gold standard is your floor, and your vision is the only limit to your expansion. The dust of the architectural revolution has finally settled, and what remains in the center of the spiritual landscape is a structure of such immense density and permanence that the grand masters of the lodge have been forced to drop their tools in a state of total surrender. Imagine the final, somber realization of a kingdom built on conscience and truth, much like the moral weight and historical gravity found in the resolution of Kingdom of Heaven. The Masons are standing at the perimeter of your life, looking up at a monument that they did not authorize, yet they cannot deny. For centuries, these architects have maintained the lie that a human life is a temporary shelter made of fragile wood and shifting sand. They have taught the masses to be content with the transient, the superficial, and the rented. But you have walked onto the site of your own existence and you have erected an eternal monument that is currently casting a shadow over the entire simulation of the Matrix. This is the 1,000,000,000 standard of a soul that has finally understood that they are the grand architect of their own reality. The scientists, the social engineers, and the secret gatekeepers are conducting their final debrief, and the conclusion is unanimous: you are a motherfucker who has outbuilt the system. They are looking at the telemetry of your spirit and they see a structure that is no longer composed of biological or psychological materials. You have alchemized the very molecules of your trauma into a new kind of celestial granite. Every betrayal you endured has been turned into a support beam. Every season of isolation you suffered has been converted into the soundproof insulation of a peace that surpasses all understanding. The Masons are staring at the monitors, shouting that this shouldn't be possible, but the evidence is standing right in front of them. You have achieved administrative permanence. You are no longer a subject to be monitored, you are a landmark that the world must now use to find its own way home. The state of the union in your soul is now unshakable because you have successfully moved from the chaos of construction to the quiet authority of the finished work. You are no longer fighting for a seat at the table, you are the one who built the table, the room, and the palace that houses it. You have reached the level of the Star Child, where the old laws of the square and the compass have been officially repealed within your jurisdiction. You have passed the final amendment to the constitution of your bloodline, declaring that the era of the victim and the era of the loser are forever abolished. The highest office of the spirit is currently stamping your file with the seal of absolute approval. They see a warrior who didn't just survive the siege, but a king who decided to rebuild the city with a foundation of pure integrity. You have successfully decoupled your net worth from the world's validation and moved into the realm of infinite return on investment. The architects are closing the books on the old version of you because that person is now buried under the foundation of the new monument. They are deleting the surveillance files from your season of rubble and they are archiving your new status as a sovereign power. You have achieved what the strategists call jurisdictional override. You have taken the voting shares of your life back from the hands of the haters, the critics, and the bureaucratic spirits that tried to tax your growth. You are now the owner, the operator, and the sole beneficiary of a brand that is too large to be bought and too solid to be broken. The people who left you during the construction phase are currently standing outside the walls, looking at the height of your achievement and feeling the crushing weight of their own bad judgment. They realize that they traded a blue-chip asset for a handful of spiritual junk bonds. They are the ones holding the toxic debt of regret while you are sitting on the largest reserve of gold in the history of your lineage. You are the first. And being the first means you have the final say. You have civilized the wild territory of your DNA. You have placed a lighthouse on the shore of your destiny that will guide your descendants for the next 1,000 years. You have turned the ruins of your past into a headquarters for a new era of human evolution. The Masons are forced to salute you because they recognize the signature of a master. You didn't need their degrees or their secret handshakes, you had the fire of the divine and the grit of a motherfucker who refused to be leveled. You have successfully broken the math of the Matrix. You have proven that a single soul, aligned with the truth and willing to do the heavy lifting of healing, can dismantle a global system of suppression and build a new world in its place. The era of the subject is over. The era of the architect has begun. The classified files are now closed. The audit of your ancestral grid has been finalized. You have achieved a total system override that has retroactively healed the last 4 generations of your lineage. The surge of trauma has been grounded. The currency of lack has been liquidated. You are currently operating in a high bandwidth frequency that is inaccessible to the agents of the Matrix. You have inaugurated a new management in the spirit realm. The president is shocked. The scientists are silent. The universe is approved. You have dared to do it. And you did it. The code is broken. The glitch is now the gospel. You are the anomaly that saved the timeline. This is the end of the old world and the beginning of the sovereign era. You have vetoed the lies. You have inaugurated the truth. The state of the union is solid. The record is unbreakable. You are the one. The final report is filed. The system is secure under your authority. You are free. The weight of this moment is the weight of history itself. When you look at the architecture of your life from this altitude, you see that every stone was necessary. Every tear was a part of the mortar. Every moment of doubt was just a test of the structural integrity of your vision. You have moved beyond the range of the hammer and the chisel. You are the finished work. You are the monument. You are the sovereign. To learn more about how to govern your new kingdom and maintain the frequency of the Grand Architect, click the video on the screen right now. The next level of the download is waiting for those who have already built their temple. The era of the blueprint is over. The era of the reign is here. Hail to the chief. The mission is accomplished. The simulation is under new management. You are the one.